Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson. Guys, it's the last week that we don't have SEC football for a while. Let that sink in for a second. And for many of you, it may even give you a sense of panic because you realize you've let the summer get away from you without getting all the things you needed to get done. Kids are back in school now, which is still weird to me. Some of them have already been in school for almost a month, which is really weird to me. As a guy that I remember, I guess it was my freshman year of high school, was the first time we didn't go back to school like after Labor Day. It's usually like that, the Tuesday after Labor Day. Because I'm from the 1900s, as you guys well know. That's well documented. But I remember we went to school, I believe it was August the 26th, my freshman year of high school. And I thought the parents were going to riot in the streets about us having to go back so early. I don't know why they were so upset about it. We're the ones that had to go, and it seemed like such a big deal to have those few extra days. They're really kind of an extra week, but maybe that's your issue. It's like, well, I just don't like change, and as a person that is adverse to change in many respects. I'm a creature of routine. I'm an addict. It's not just something about what I put in my body. I'm the kind of person I like the orderly flow to things, but maturity has taught us that you got to be able to bob and weave, right? When life brings a little change at you. But I'm glad I'm not having to deal with that. And for those of you that have to get up earlier to bring your kids to school, enjoy those fall breaks, I guess. But nevertheless, here we are. And that's the thing I think about. The wife and I were talking about that this morning. Is, she's almost done, thank God. And she'll be next month, about 5 weeks from now, we'll be done with the nursing profession, hopefully forever. Nothing against nursing. It's been great to us. But, we've got a new endeavor. We're about to open up. We've signed the lease and paid the deposit in the first month's rent. Oh, my gosh. It's one of those things, right? It's real now. Got a lot of money committed to this already. But all that said, it's like, hey, she's coming home this week. I was in Knoxville last week. She'll be here this week on Wednesday and be with me through the weekend. And I told her, I said, hey, the next time you come home, be getting ready to help cover a college football game. How cool is that? Yeah. So next week, we're going to get ready to get together. Now, a couple things. Guys, from what I understand, there's like less than 100, or right at 100 season tickets left. That's it. So even if you haven't bought your season tickets, you still can. And we'd love to be able to say that we've sold them all out. And not just because we want to be able to say that some big donor came in here and bought out our last ones. We want to be able to say that this fan base is fully behind Zach Arnett, this staff, this program, this university. We haven't been able, not to say that we hadn't had some loyalty, but that is one of those vulgar displays of power, to borrow a phrase, to be able to say, you know what, hey, in year one of Arnett, our fans answered the call. And not only did they buy up all the tickets, they came to the games. And we need you here. We do. And I know, listen, I get it. A lot of people got out of the habit of coming up here. And trust me, our Starkville merchants has suffered as a result. Not to make you feel guilty, but that's the reality of it. I don't know how many of them, how so many of them made it through COVID, to be honest with you. And maybe perhaps it was the federal government's relief aid, which was a good use of federal government tax dollars. We could spend the rest of the day talking about all those tax dollars that are wasted in other ways, but we're not going to, because we're not a political show. Though we could speak intelligently on that topic and very passionately about it, we're not going to. But I think COVID got us out of the habit of going, right? We got bunkered down, right? We're like, hey, I'm going to be here and watch these games, not going to put myself at risk. And you build the man or the woman cave or the family cave or whatever you want to call it. Maybe you bought that new TV and it's like, man, I bought this TV. I don't want to waste the opportunity to watch a big game at home, and cook out and have people over. And that's all great. It is. But nothing will ever compare to being there live. And it's not just for your entertainment value. You need to be there to be a part of it, to help kind of push this team forward. And so we have slowly built and built and built. We have sold more season tickets this year already than we have since 2015, which was the school record. And as noted on this show a couple weeks back, school record is safe, considering we put those balconies in. So we kind of limited capacity a little bit. And I've seen some people say, hey, that clearly was a bad idea. And here's the thing about that is you got to make the best decision at the time and hope for the best. But the reality of it is fans have responded. So let's go ahead and gobble up these last 100 or so tickets and be finished. And I expect us to announce a sellout at some point this week, that all season tickets are sold completely out. And I think you're going to want to be a part of that. Year one of the Zach Arnett era. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company. Hadn't been in there in a little bit. I've been gone. I need to get in there this week. I suspect we will be as the caboose turns 18 this week. And he is employed there at Bulldog Burger Company. Those folks have been so great to us over the years. And here's the thing, too, I'll tell you. It's not just as an advertiser. They've been phenomenal, incredibly supportive of our show. But also, too, my daughter worked at Harvey's. My oldest daughter, Audrey, worked at Harvey's. Ian works at Bulldog Burger Company. And I'll tell you, that's kind of where his circle of friends are. Like last night, I texted him, hey, what's going on? Hanging out with some friends of mine from Bulldog after work. And so I love the arrangement. I love being able to be affiliated with this wonderful group. And so grateful for them for sponsoring our show. But at the end of the day, their mandate is to provide you with a great meal at a great price with great service in great locations. Man, did they not do that for you? They absolutely do. So consistent in everything they do. I mean, it's a well-oiled machine in many respects. I'm sure those that work behind the scenes may disagree. But every time I go in there, I know exactly what to expect. I can't say that about a lot of other places where I go put my feet under their table. Sometimes it's very hit or miss. It's just not like that at Bulldog Burger Company. Had been my experience, and I've been going for years. I was probably one of their first 500 customers. Love that place, man. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Go have that great restaurant quality hamburger. One of the few delicacies in life we afford ourselves. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer. They will make you better looking. Trust the science. In addition to that, get that chocolate shake to go. Maybe get that bread pudding, bring it home, put it in the fridge. And a little bit later when you need that palate cleanser, you can go down there and get that bad boy. I love it, man. I do. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right, we're now in Mock Week. Mock Week, which is something that Mike Leach instituted when he became the head football coach here at Mississippi State. Camp is over. Classes have begun. Scout team has been designated. Now we're working with our 2 deep. They're going to run our scheme against the scout team. So going to be an increase in reps, from the guys that are going to be expected to make an impact on your team this year. This week, of course, as we mentioned last week, that they're going to basically have a dress rehearsal. This will be basically like game week. So there are still some position battles, as Coach Zach Arnett mentioned over the weekend, that'll kind of flesh themselves out this week. What I thought we would do is let's take a trip through kind of the depth chart here and kind of what I expect to see. Because I'm going to be honest with you, some of these battles I think may linger on for a week or two until we find the right combination of players. And it's good to have some options. We have some depth. I hadn't always had that. People remember we went over and played Georgia with 49 players on a travel roster and then got over there and had to sit some of those guys. We'll start at quarterback. That's the most obvious one. Obviously, Will Rogers, the guy's got over 10,000 passing yards. I like what Josh Pate said. If you don't watch Late Kick Live, let me encourage you to check that. Josh Pate, outstanding. Great part of our network at 247 Sports. Josh makes a good point. If there's an inherent bias about the Mississippi State logo. People look at that and expect us to be bad. And it's like, I think to myself, how many of these people pay attention? But in addition to that, too, think about the fact that every kid in high school now, every single kid in high school, or we'll just talk about the seniors, I guess, or maybe even the juniors, The last time Mississippi State missed a bowl game, they weren't even in school. So maybe perhaps we're changing the perception with the next generation. The expectations for State to be good, but you've got some of these long-standing SEC homers that see it differently. You would think making 13 bowl games in a row would change people's perception of our program. You would think winning 9 games last year, going 4-4 in the SEC, and finishing top 20 would change the perception. If, as Jai says, if we were a Big Ten or an ACC team with 20 or 22 starters being seniors, a 10,000-yard passer, and winning 9 games last year, there are a lot of people that would pick us in the top 15. It's just what we have to deal with, unfortunately. And so, you know what? That's fine. We'll just play with a chip on our shoulder. I think Will Rogers is a guy that probably feels like he has a little something to prove. I think Will's ready to move on to the next level. And I think this offense is going to show, too, that he's not a system quarterback. But he is the undisputed starter. Mike Wright's done a really good job. But as I've mentioned on the show before, reality of it is I think that, in the event we have to play Mike in some games, we're going to win those games. There's a different element to this offense when Mike is in there. So I think he and Will kind of complement each other. Mike is not the passer that Will is, nor do you expect him to be. The accuracy piece is not very consistent in times with Mike, but he adds that running dimension to the offense. And I think that he's a guy, too, that Kevin Barbay probably looks up and says, you know what, I got to give this defense a lot to prepare for. It's incredible. Chris Parsons been running third team, and again, that's your future right there. Is Mike the starter next year? Is Parsons the starter next year? I don't know. But it's pretty much established, this pecking order. And you'll see all 3 guys play. I don't know if Chris plays more than 4 games, but you'll see all 3 guys play. All right, running back, this is last year we were kind of a two-headed monster, really the last couple of years. All the way back to 2020. You remember when, Colin Hill quit / was dismissed from the team? It went to Woody Marks and Dylan Johnson. Well, Dylan's moved on, and people are like, how are we going to replace him? I think we've done that. I think we've done that in spades, to be honest with you. I think there's a good chance you see 5 running backs play this year, if not more. I think late in ball games especially, you're going to let some of these younger guys get some carries. But Woody Marks, easily the bell cow of this group. The production value is there. The potential is there to be even greater. Simeon Price proved to be a very solid number 2 guy last year down the stretch. We don't win the ReliaQuest Bowl without Simeon Price. And then you bring in Kevon Lee from Penn State. Could really fill that Dylan Johnson role. You get the number 1 junior college running back in the country in Jeffrey Pippin, who has been really, really good. And then you add in Seth Davis. Seth Davis, routinely getting mentioned by Barbay and Arnett, is a guy that may see the field this year as a freshman. You begin to think, okay, do we want to waste a year of his eligibility with a 5 running back system? Well, if you can win games, yes. That's the reason you bring those guys in, is to win games. So now we forget that. So if Seth Davis is a guy, because his skill set is different than everybody else in the room, I think that's the thing when you look at this running back room. It's not just like Woody Marks and a bunch of dudes. Everybody has a different skill set. They bring a different element to this deal. I think that's a big part of it. There's so much of that I think needs to be kind of established this year. Is you've got a ton of guys out here that do something a little bit different to make this running back room all the better. It's Woody, and you think about Simeon Price can be a guy to come in and give him a blow. Jeffrey Pittman, obviously, is a guy that's very good in short yardage, but had a 25-yard touchdown run over the weekend. You got some guys here. I think you can feel really good about the running back room. And, again, I know many of you are like, well, Steve, how do we replace Dylan? We've done it. We've accomplished that. Let's get an offensive line. I think there's still a little ebb and flow with this. Percy Lewis has played some at left tackle. Dollar Bill has played some at left tackle. In addition to that, Nick Jones last year played some at left tackle. And while Nick is not the biggest guy with the greatest wingspan, really good feet. He can go out there and get in the way, right? But I think there's kind of 3 guys over there on that left side. I think the right side is very much established. Of course, you got Cole Smith at center, Stephen Lasoya there at right guard, Cam Jones should be the starting right tackle. Albert Reese kind of right there with him. But the left side is interesting. Dollar Bill has worked some at left tackle, and of course Percy Lewis. So I think you have options there. I think it's rather interesting to think about Percy and Dollar Bill on the left side together. Wouldn't that be interesting? Percy Lewis at left tackle, Dollar Bill at left guard. You talk about some mass out there moving people, right? So that's something that I expect there to be some movement with. I mean, you'd like to already have your blindside protector kind of like already completely established. And maybe, Will Friend and those guys already have a really good idea how they're going to run it. But they have run some different combinations in camp just to kind of see what fits and how our needs are met. But the good thing is the fact that we can talk about this, we're basically talking about 7-8 guys that are capable of starting or playing significant snaps for you. So I feel good about the group. I think you should too. There's a ton of SEC snaps with this group. And again, Percy Lewis is a massive human being and has trimmed up and done a good job. And so I'm eager to see what we can get out of him this year. Tight end wise, it's going to be Rylan Godet and Spivey. And then, of course, you got Antonio Harmon behind him, who has kind of been the pass reception tight end of choice in camp. Another guy that I think is interesting is Jaquarius Spivey. He is trimmed up, wearing number 99 now, too. It's amazing how this room has transformed in a short time. Like the group a lot, eager to see what they can do. And obviously, Spivey and Godet, while they're veteran guys, they don't have, a ton of production on the college level. They don't. They put a lot of snaps, but they don't have a ton of production. And so, again, I think this will be a by-committee approach. I think you can feel pretty good about the group. Again, it helps to, when you're kind of reinventing or rebuilding the tight end room, to bring in some guys that have played Power 5 football at that position. We've done that. It's not like we're asking people to do things they haven't done before. But I think that group's going to be interesting. A lot of diversity within the group. Wide receiver room, I think you pretty much know how this is all going to flesh itself out. Lot of options here. A lot of it depends on, do we go with 3 and 4 man sets? What do we do? Tulu, of course, played in the slot. Creed Whittemore has been really good behind him. Jacoby Belazar has been really good too. We have some real skill at those inside receiver positions. Justin Robinson, obviously a dude. You feel like that you start working through all this. There's going to be a combination of personnel groups that are kind of going to – there's going to be one of these situations where guys move around, right? You like Tulu on the inside to give him the full expanses of the middle field to work with. That gets a walking mismatch. Jordan Mosley is a guy that we talked about is to watch in camp. He has had a really good camp. He's healthy, expecting some big things from him. He's worked some at Z. Freddie Roberson, of course, transfer in from Eastern Washington, has been really good. Creed Whittemore, of course. Justin Robinson, obviously, the big X, right? And so Jaden Wally, a guy that we need to have a big year from. I like the group. I don't even care how they line up as long as Tulu is in the slot. Because I think Tulu is going to occupy the safety so much. You're going to have to be conscious of what Tulu Griffin does. We can move him around. We can slide him on the backside of the formation. Tulu, even when he's not the primary receiver, can be a guy that creates better matchups for the guys on the outside because he is so explosive. You have to know where he is. Like a great pass rusher, your quarterback in pre-snap burrito, let's identify where he is. Same thing with Tulu. You get those safeties back there talking and communicating. Next thing you know, you have a shift somewhere. Everybody's paying attention to Tulu, and then somebody else, of course, does something a little bit, maybe on the backside of the play that sets up an interesting dynamic. And so, you can use Tulu as a decoy in addition to being a big player. But I love the personnel group here. And again, Creed Whittemore is a guy, too, that I don't know that I would say I'm surprised, but in some respects I am. He is not playing like a true freshman. He is playing like a coach's kid that's watched a ton of film that lives for the game of football. And you better get ready. I'm just telling you right now, Creed Whittemore is a dude. You begin to work through this, you think, well, we know what Jaden Wiley's like. We know what Tulu's like. We know what Justin Robinson's like. Jordan Mosley, Freddie Roberson, Belzar, and Whittemore, those guys are proof positive that the Mike Leach staff did a really good job. Steve Spurrier Jr., give him a lot of credit for putting together a really good wide receiver room that even though we can lose several guys from last year and still return a ton of production, a ton of talent, I think you can feel really good about that. And so offensively, again, I don't care how we line up a wide receiver as long as Tulu is in the slot. I think most of you guys would agree. And I think Jacoby Belazar is another guy, too, that people just aren't quite, ready to embrace that yet because you hadn't seen him. But I think when you start working through our depth at those positions, all of a sudden, let's say you run two inside guys, Tulu on one side, Belazar on the other. Everybody's going to be so focused on five, and they're not going to realize that Belazar is almost as fast and just as shifty. And he's going to get paired up. We're going to have our fourth best receiver at times paired up with your fourth best DB, and we're going to win that matchup. Going to be interesting. Going to be interesting. All right, on the defensive side of the football, I think we got a pretty good idea how this is going to shake out too. Hey, Bulldog fans, are you on the go? Is it more difficult than ever to find something healthy and wholesome to eat? I tell you what, let us help you with our friends at HelloFresh. Had great experiences with them in the past. You can take a bite out of summer yourself with HelloFresh. From chef-crested seasonal recipes to their new fresh and fit summer menu, HelloFresh brings flavor right to your door. And here's the thing, too. It doesn't have to just be the same old thing, right? Sometimes you get caught in the habits. They have these new menus, and they have new options for you that make dining a pleasure. Make your home the hangout place this summer with crowd-pleasing eats from a backyard bratwurst to tangy key lime pie. HelloFresh Market makes summer entertaining a cinch. Be sure and check them out. We're going to make it easy for you. Go to HelloFresh.com/Boneyard50. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/Boneyard50. And you wonder what the 50 stands for? Yeah, it gets you 50% off plus free shipping. How about that? 50% off plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/Boneyard50. We've all been there before. You got big weekend plans. For some reason, it just didn't work out. Maybe life gets in the way. Maybe you want to head down to the casino. Maybe take some of their money. I like to do that. Well, MyBookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game for you. Dive into truly realistic casino experiences featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action's in your hands. And the best part is you don't even have to wear pants. How cool is that? Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code Boneyard. That's promo code Boneyard to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. And that's not all. Because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you'll be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks, the more you play, the more you'll win. Play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino. Again, that's promo code Boneyard. Hey, Bulldog fans, do you enjoy live entertainment like I do? I'm always going to rock shows or going to ball games. I'm always going somewhere that requires a ticket. So when you're looking for tickets to your next game, concert, or show, make shopping for tickets a little bit easier with TickPick, the original no-fee ticket marketplace that brings you the best prices for all the events you love. And now, TickPick is partnering with Zip, so you can shop now and pay later. How cool is that? Zip allows you to shop at TickPick and split your payment into easy monthly installments. Visit TickPick.com and use promo code ZIP20 for $20 off your first purchase of $199 or more with Zip. Zip can only be used for U.S. purchases, and Zip may charge a fee at checkout. Certain merchant products, goods, and service restrictions may apply. See Zip's terms of service at www.zip.co/US. Loans to the Zip app are originated by WebBank, except for Zip-originated loans in Colorado, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maryland. Shop for all your tickets at tickpick.com and check out with Zip to split your payments into easy installments. Zip makes it easier than ever before to get your tickets now and pay for them later at tickpick.com. Check out with Zip at tickpick.com. Thing is, again, you got some depth here. The issue is, I think, is you've got a lot of guys that were highly recruited. You feel really good about them. You just need to get them out there and let them get under the microscope a little bit. I mean, okay, look, if we go out there with Pick, Crum, and JD, Jordan Davis, Nathan Pickering, Jaden Crumity, you feel like, okay, I know these guys, we're good. And you should be. DeMonte Russell, yeah. You feel good about him. And DeMonte, he's listed as a senior, but he has 2 years of eligibility left if he decides to use it. I know he'd like to have a big year and go pro this year. And if he has a year good enough to get drafted, we've had a heck of a year. But yeah, I feel like across the front, it's JD, Pick, and Crum, and then Trevion Williams, Calvin Dinkins. And Calvin Dinkins has had a tremendous camp. Tremendous. Not just based on what we've observed, but just talking to people kind of behind the scenes. I don't think people fully appreciate, what a good late get that was for us. I think Dink is going to be a guy that you're going to look back a couple years from now and say, man, I can't believe, we're able to get this guy late. And people forget, we had to hold off Florida to get him. But, so I feel good about that group. And then Eric Taylor, and we talked about him, former All-American, played at OSU, went to Southwest Mississippi. He's not even starting. He's a depth guy. But that's another guy, too. You start thinking about, hey, all of a sudden we went into the fall worried a little bit about depth, but we've had some younger guys make a jump. We've had the addition of Eric Taylor. And then, Ty Cooper, of course, is a guy, too, we're expecting some good things from. But still kind of waiting for Ty to take that next step. And hopefully he will this year. But you got to get these guys out here. But, again, you feel great about that first-team group and feel better about the second-team group. Better, right? Because you know what Trevion Williams can do. And you guys, he wasn't as highly recruited as he was for no reason. It wasn't just because he had a couple of good games and a decent profile picture. This guy's a dude. And we need Dink and Trevion and those guys to kind of begin to emerge as the next great defensive front. Linebackers, you feel really good about this group. You got Buki and Jet out there. The real battle's been at Sam. John Lewis and J.P. Purvis have kind of been the front runners there. They'll both play a good bit. I think first snap is probably John Lewis. But J.P. has proven to be a very solid player for us. Played for Sam Williams, Coach Sam Williams. Love that guy, man. Then behind him, of course, you've got some younger guys coming up, but you also have Deshaun Page. So you start thinking about, let's say your primary 5 linebackers. John Lewis, 4-star kid that a little bit banged up his freshman year, had some nice action last year. Buki, Jet, and then you throw Deshaun Page in there, another guy, been one of our better guys off the bench, and then Purvis. You remember how well he played against A&M. And so all of a sudden you start thinking this 2 deep is really good, and there's guys that can play multiple spots within the linebacker room. And you've had freshman Zachary Tillman that's really stepped up and done some big things too. And so eager to see what he becomes. But a lot of talk about Avery Sledge and Javay Gilmore. So I'm sure we're going to empty the bench, and we should, hopefully, in week 1. So you'll be able to chance to see some of these guys get out there and move around. But linebacker depth was a concern entering spring. I think now that we've gotten to fall, I think we've addressed that and feel really good. Feel really good probably about 5 of our 6. Of course, you got to replace, a lot of production over there with Tyra Sweet being gone. That was a disruptor. Can John Lewis and J.P. Purvis do that? We'll see. But I think you feel really good about that group now. The defensive back situation's rather interesting. I think we're beginning to kind of feel like the safeties are kind of beginning to settle. I mean, Jacoby Albert is a guy that is consistently been mentioned by the coaching staff as a guy that's flashed at times. Marcus Banks is absolutely going to be covering the slot. This is going to be a guy that, again, a converted corner, moving to safety, gets him on the field, one of the fastest players on the team. And then Sean Preston. Sean's got a lot of snaps under his belt. I suspect when we roll out there that it'll be Jacoby, Speedy Banks, and Sean Preston snap 1. And then behind him, Corey Ellington's the guy that's worked some. Jordan Morant has played some. Christopher Keys has done some things. So you've got a lot of numbers out there, and you've got some guys that have some snaps under their belt. Again, while I feel better, don't confuse that to be good. Until we see these guys on the field in a game-type situation, I don't know exactly sure what we got, right? I think that's important to understand too. You're beginning to sell in the depth chart, but can these guys, play the way we want them to? And I hadn't mentioned Isaac Smith yet either. I think he is a future NFL player that'll get his first action this year, and he's going to be tough to keep him off the field once he gets out there. And I could see him being a starter before the year is over, provided he can make the jump. He's certainly capable of doing that. But again, I think this safety room, again, that's the one thing. While we kind of got an idea who's going to start. How are they going to play? All right, corner, you got DCAM on one side. A size Ferge on the other side. Again, I've said on the show recently, I think DeCarlos Nicholson ultimately becomes that guy. Hunter Washington's a bit more of a squat corner. He's a guy that maybe doesn't have the length that some of the other guys in the room do, but he's a guy that's going to play a good bit. And is he a two-deeper? Absolutely. Is he a starter? I think that remains to be seen. I think you could see some situations based on matchups where Hunter could be a factor there. But you know what you got with DCAM, and you feel like you've got some serviceable guys on the other side. I think DeCarlos Nicholson, of the guys that are expected to play significant reps week one, I think DeCarlos is probably the guy that maybe has the most upside. Again, Washington Ferge don't have his length or size. Not to say they can't play football, they can. But they're guys that probably are better playing the ball in front of them a little bit. So, we'll see how things go. But there's some younger guys too. Kamari Rogers will come along. Bryce Pollock. There's some young guys that may see action against Southeastern later in the ball game. But I think, again, you have options. It's good to have battles, right? It's one of those things, too, where your competition makes everybody around you better. And when you can kind of train your focus on, that cornerback position opposite DCAM, of course, you got to find some guys to play behind him. But, guys know how to play both sides of the field these days. They're not just hamstrung into one position. But it will be interesting to see how it flashes out. And, again, that's the thing with, the secondary. You kind of figure this. It's about communication and cohesion. It's not always about your 5 best DBs. It's about the 5 that play the best together. That's the important aspect of it. Guys that can communicate, guys that understand. And, of course, we hit the portal really, really, really hard to supplement what we had returning in the defensive backfield. I believe we have the right pieces. Now it's about kind of figuring out where they all fit. And it does appear that that's kind of settling in. Special teams, you know what you got there. Keelan Crimmins, a guy that, should be the punter for the foreseeable future. And then Nick Barmera's been a little bit shaken up, but we do expect him to be good to go once we get on the field here in 2 weeks. And then, of course, there's Kyle Ferry, a guy that we're really excited about. And he may eliminate the possibility of us signing a scholarship guy to portal at the end of the year. I know that the hope is to go get the best, Power 5 kicker you possibly can to join your program. And you got Massimo Biscardi last year, which is a big-time player, But you can never have too much depth or competition. And I think the days of just taking a bunch of walk-on kickers are probably over. I think you have to have some guys out there that, there's a reason they have scholarship offers, right? Hayes Hammond, of course, will be your deep snapper. And then you know what you got return-wise. And it was funny, Eric Mealy said, I got a couple under-the-radar guys, Xavier Thomas and Tulu Griffin. Yeah, All-Americans, right? So special teams-wise, we should be in better shape this year. Of course, we had some explosive play down the stretch last year. We just got to be able to get out and cover, right? Ought to be able to kick the ball well. Ought to be able to return the ball well. Let's just go out there and cut some things down and be able to limit people's field position. Make them drive the length of the field. But that's kind of how I see it today. May feel differently next week, and we'll talk about the 2 deep when it comes out officially, but based on observations and conversations with people close to the topic, that's kind of how I see it today. And I think I feel good about the team. I feel good about the opportunity. I think offensively in the scrimmage last weekend showed. Offensively, I think we're going to be a lot better than people expect. I think we know this defense is going to be really good. And the fact that we can make some plays against them, I think, number one, gives the defense some things to work on so they don't maybe feel quite so full of themselves, but also, too, maybe gives the offense a little confidence because we are facing a very experienced defense. And if we can move the football against them, I think we can move the football against most any team, with rare exception. But that's how I see the starting lineup and the two deep kind of shaking out as we move into the rest of mock week. All right, time for today's top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Blair is my friend. He's your friend. He's a friend of those in need in the mortgage industry. If you're going to trust your mortgage to somebody, you need to do it to somebody that's got some experience. Somebody that understands your specific needs, gets to know you as a person. You're not just another 1003 residential housing application. Blair understands you got hopes and dreams for your family. He wants to make those dreams become a reality. As I've mentioned on the show before, it's now legal in the state of Mississippi for a buyer 18 years of age to enter into a mortgage transaction, permitting they have a co-signer. Maybe that's you. Maybe you want to get your young person established with some adult credit. Maybe, again, as I've mentioned before, maybe your kids come into school here, and rather than throw your money away renting, maybe you make an investment. Maybe that becomes your game day home in the future. Maybe it becomes something you turn over and you sell when your young person has graduated, or perhaps you just allow them to refinance and take over the payments at that point. Blair can walk you through every bit of that. 22 years of experience in the mortgage origination business. Nobody stays in any industry 20 plus years by accident. This is a guy that gets things done, and he's closing Boneyard loans pretty much every month. Reach out to Blair at 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. I'm a guy, too, who likes to keep it in the family. When given the choice, I do business with Bulldogs. If I got to spend the money, I want you guys to benefit from it. As a matter of fact, the guy that's handling our loan stuff for the new business, Bulldogs. The people we're going to buy our building materials from, Bulldogs. I like to keep it in the family. I know some of you do as well. I know where that money's going to go, right? It's like, if I do business with Blair, I understand this. Blair's a guy that's a season ticket holder in multiple sports. He has a place here in Starkville. So when I spend money with Blair, I know it's some way it's going to get filtered back through the Mississippi state system, right? Rather than be part of somebody else's NIL package. So reach out to Blair. Works with Fairway Mortgage, a very reputable lender. Recently voted number 1 in customer satisfaction in the mortgage loan origination business. Again, that's closewithblair.com. All right, we did the top 20. We did 10 songs from '98. 25 years of age, and it didn't make me feel old. Sometimes you hear songs, I can't believe that song is that old. That doesn't make me feel old because I know I have got a point of reference. Like these songs, were out before the turn of the century, before Y2K and all that craziness that went on. That scam they perpetrated on all of us. Everything's got to be Y2K compliant. It ended up not being a big deal. There were some people that were suggesting the world could end when midnight on the year 2000 rolled in. Yeah, there's always been that element of alarmism in the world. There's always some people out there that want to make you believe they know more than you do, and that somehow your life is going to be inconvenienced to perhaps be in a situation where it's going to end because of a number. It's crazy, the stuff people try to get us to believe. That said, these songs make me feel old because they're turning 10 this year. Top 10 rock songs from 2013 on today's show. Has it really been 10 years? Yes, it's really been 10 years. Some of these songs I still listen to. There's some other ones I go back and think, I can't believe this. Has it really been 10 years? I feel like it was just yesterday. Top 10 rock songs from the year 2013. Number 10, it's Slash with Miles Kennedy and the New Conspirators. I absolutely love this project. I've told you guys before, I think Miles Kennedy is the best male vocalist in rock music today. I do. And sometimes my opinions vary. Sometimes there are a while I could put you a list together. Maybe I should of top male vocalists and female vocalists in rock today. Perhaps I should do that. We hadn't done that in a while. It changes, you know. If I had to make a call today, I'd have to say Noah from Bad Omens is on my list. But for a while there, I would say, you know, Jesse Isaac from 10 Years and Brent Smith from Shinedown. But Miles Kennedy is the one guy that elicits emotion for me. There are so many songs that he has participated in that get to me. I mean, it really speaks to me. I had a chance to speak to Slash and Miles on the telephone back in 2014, which was pretty cool to be able to share. And I remember telling them, I said, you guys, I don't even have a question. I just want to say that I believe that there's a little piece of God in all of us. And when you guys perform and Miles Kennedy sings, the little piece of God in him speaks to the little piece of God in me. And for many of you, I know that's the case. There are some people that write songs. And I remember, guys, man, it seems like forever ago now. But there was a time, you know, before I left Baton Rouge, it was all post-Katrina. You know, the city was changing. My neighborhood was changing. Felt like my life was changing. Went through a bit of a midlife crisis, I guess you could say. And I would sit down, and there's some days I would only listen to one song, and that's Watch Over You from Alter Bridge. I would listen to it over and over and over because it gave me a sense of peace. And Miles Kennedy was a part of that, and I got to thank him for that. It means an awful lot to me. But today, our song is from the, I guess it's Apocalyptic Love album. It's a great song called Anastasia. It got an incredible guitar solo on this. Slash, tremendous guitar player and has been for an extremely long time. And we have some mutual friends, though I've never met him. I have spoken to him on the phone. I can tell you that the guy's still at the top of his game. And again, there's talk of new Guns N' Roses music. Let's go. But Anastasia, number 10. Number 9, we have had this song on the show before when we did Corey Taylor Week. And Corey's side project outside of Slipknot is a band called Stone Sour. Their big hit in 2013 was the great song Do Me a Favor. That's your number 9 song today. Do Me a Favor from Stone Sour. Number 8, when this song came out, man, I absolutely loved it. Found out later they were actually a Christian band. Didn't know it. Makes perfect sense, though. It's a band called Devour the Day. Good man. I want to be a good man. I want to see God. You're like, oh, well, Steve, how did you not know? Well, you know, there are a lot of people out there in the secular world that use religious references all the time. But these guys are the real deal. Devour the Day, Good Man, number 8. And probably one of the songs on this list you're not quite as familiar with. Love that track, man. Number 7, the band 3 Days Grace. This is back when Adam Gautier was in the band. Of course, he's with Saint Sonia now. And 3 Days Grace, of course, has moved forward with a new singer. The only band in modern rock history that has more number 1 singles than 3 Days Grace is Shinedown, who's also on this list. That's amazing to think about that. I remember when Shinedown surpassed Van Halen with the most number 1 rock singles of all time, and it's been back and forth between 3 Days of Grace and Shinedown ever since. This is one of my favorite songs from this era, but from the entire 3 Days Grace catalog. It's The High Road. And it starts, I told you I was hurt and bleeding on the inside. You know, we've all been there. At some point, especially when we get alone, I'm one of those kinds of people that sometimes being alone is not a good thing for me. You know, because I get depressed and I walk around here and I feel lonely and I get, I look for something to do. You know, and at times things get overwhelming. I mean, I've been clean and sober, man, over 31 years, but that's not to say I have a good day every day. I don't. And, I remember a couple weekends ago, it was just absolutely terrible. You know, I'm just walking around here. I just wish I had something to do. You know, the gravity of the situation, the fact of being an empty nester alone for a few more weeks was tough. You know, it is. But the song The High Road is one of those that just is really uplifting to me. You know, and in many ways, I think it's kind of personifies my life in many respects. I took the low road in, I took the high road out. Great track. Number 6, many of you have become fans of this band through our show. I submit to you, and I'm prepared to fight this battle. I submit to you that Lizzie Hale is the best female rock vocalist of my lifetime. That's right. I'll just say it for what it is. She has a grit. She plays the guitar. She writes her own music. She also can do the melodic stuff. She has a huge vocal range. A lot of people would say, but yeah, Steve Jones Jett is so cool. And she is, but she has nowhere near the range of Lizzie Hale. But Steve is Lita Ford. She was so hot. And it's true. It's true. She's not as talented as Lizzie Hale. So we're going with Hellstorm, the great track, Freak Like Me. Are you a freak like me? And that's not necessarily filled with sexual innuendo. It's just about being different, being an individual. I guess in many respects, I'm a freak. I'd rather be a freak than a fake. I'll tell you that. Number 6, Hellstorm, Freak Like Me. Number 5, a band that I have been very hot and cold with and was really kind of late to the party because I thought a lot of their earlier lyrics were so incredibly sophomoric. And it was like you had these great tracks that began to sound the same over and over and over again. And I thought that Ivan Moody was a guy that kind of came off a little bit phony. But all that said, he's now clean and sober and doing good. Not that that's a prerequisite for me to like your music. But my wife loved him from the very beginning. And I think sometimes she liked him because I didn't. You have those moments in your relationship where, it's like, well, all of a sudden, I don't really like that song. Oh, I think it's great. Oh, I don't think it's very good at all. And the next thing you know, like every time it comes on, she turns the radio up in a very passive-aggressive way. Is it just me? Is it just me that happens to? But in time, I made my peace with Five Finger Death Punch. Ani and I used to say, what's Five Finger Fruit Punch if you ask me? Yeah. I just didn't think there was a lot to them. But I think they have matured in many respects, and they do have some songs that I really like. And probably my favorite song from Five Finger Death Punch, and maybe it's because of a bit of a nostalgia, it's Lift Me Up, that features Rob Halford from Judas Priest on the second verse. Absolutely love it. I love the drums on this. I love, like, as soon as it starts, it's like, oh my gosh, here we go. Five Finger Death Punch, Lift Me Up, number 5. Number 4, we mentioned it earlier in the show, arguably my favorite band of this generation. Sometimes I lose track. I think I have 4 Shinedown tattoos. I think that's right. I know I have at least 3. I'd have to kind of do some inventory. Yeah, I got that many. But it's the great song, I'll Follow You. And this is just one of those songs, too, that I think in many respects is rather timeless. And I think the lyrics behind this is really about somebody loving another person. And to see them, it's like, you know what, this is who I'm supposed to be with. There's a big difference between infatuation and love. And that's one of the things, too. I'm not going to get on my soapbox and have one of these get off my lawn type conversations. But I wonder what's going to happen to the divorce rate in this country with the next generation. And I think in some respects it might remain the same because I think fewer and fewer people are getting married, which you have your own value system, but I think it's unfortunate. But that said, I'll Follow You is about, hey, I'm in love with this woman. And he talks about that. I don't care if we fall from grace. I'll follow you down. And that's truly what love is really about. There's so much of that these days. It's all so self-serving. And again, I'll preach a little bit here. One of the things that irritates me, and I'm sure I'll get some people, but Steve, you don't understand, and maybe I don't. Okay, I'll open up and tell you that. Maybe I don't. But I don't understand this brand of selfishness that exists in today's society. We have never been more selfish as a people than we are now in the history of mankind. It's all about me. What can I do for me? I mean, I was on Reddit recently and reading about, this lady that, her husband wants her to go to family events. Like his family is very close, and they get together, 3 or 4 times a month, and they have dinner, they have barbecues, they watch ball games together, and she don't want to go. And you say, but Steve, she shouldn't have to go. Well, yeah, she should at times. I'm not saying she got to go every time. And it's like all of a sudden we want to blame all of our selfishness and say, well, this is what I need to do for my mental health. Well, you could have to go to work every day, right? You couldn't go spend 2 hours to go to a barbecue at your in-laws' house. Think about the position it's putting that dude in, right? It shouldn't be that way. Relationships are by give and take. And I will tell you this. When I look back over the pathology of my own life, and look back at 31 years of being with the same woman, and they haven't all been great years. I'll just tell you for how it is. When you're with somebody in the human condition for that long, some years are going to be better than others. It's true. That's just kind of how it is. Infatuation won't last decades. But I'll tell you, the times that I look back and say, you know what, when things weren't as they should be, it was typically because one or both of us was being very selfish. That's the truth. Your relationships are about giving. And I say, but Steve, you're giving. Yeah, it's true. It's true. And there are some years and there are some stretches in your relationship where you've got to do more than your 50%. And it's really not even 50%. Both people have to be 100% in. But there are some years that you got to give a little bit more. You do. It's why I just get so tired of giving. Okay, then go be single. Because in a relationship, you're going to have to be giving. That's a big part of it. One of the most profound things my dad ever told me, ever. I said I wasn't going to preach, but here I am. It's like people get married and they say, well, they changed. So-and-so changed. And they say, change is inevitable when you get married. It is inevitable. You have to change. Because before, you live by yourself. You can squeeze the toothpaste in the middle. You don't have to put the toilet seat down. Take the trash out when you want to. Watch what you want to. You can be very self-driven. When you marry somebody or you live with somebody or you enter into a living arrangement or a true relationship, you got to change. You have to. It's inevitable. It's never going to work if you continue to live life as you did as a single person, right? And again, the age of social media, there's so many of these relationships that, I know I sound judgmental, and that's okay too. It's also superficial, it truly is. It's like I saw a thing a while back on one of these podcasts where this guy asked 4 college-age girls, would you rather have a long-term meaningful relationship or would you rather have Instagram? And all 4 of them said Instagram. All 4 of them said Instagram. It's like I think to myself, what are we valuing in life? We're valuing these likes and tweets and comments from complete strangers that really add nothing of benefit to our lives other than the little euphoria in very, very small doses. Yeah, and I don't know what other people are looking for in life, but what I wanted is to find somebody to love me and to support me and to be there for me in good times and bad and to lift me up and to help carry the load a little bit rather than somebody to just, slide in my DMs and tell me how cute I am. Come on. Live your life how you want to live your life. But I will live my life just like I'll follow you down. In the great Shine Down track, I'll follow you. And recently, it's one of the things that she told me. We were talking about opening this business. We were like, you know what? This is a big risk financially for us. She's going to get out of nursing. There's so much to this. And listen, I wanted to do it, but I was nervous. I had a lot of apprehension. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's the right move here. And she said, I'd rather try and fail and live with you in a camper than live in that big house having never tried to do anything great. And I think that's love. That's love. We would sacrifice the security of having this, what we have, for something better. And I'm a firm believer in I'd rather try than not know, right? I live my life that way. And so those are the things that I think about. So yes, you can have your Instagram likes. You can have every bit of that. You can have all of mine too, because I don't live for those. Number 3. I love this band. I haven't seen them live yet. Dan and I talked about this recently. We're always talking about like bucket list stuff, like who do you really want to see? Who is a band we haven't seen we'd like to meet, bands we'd like to see, that sort of stuff. And there's a band from England that we love. And they had a huge hit in 2013. It's just when things really begin to take off for them. It's Bring Me the Horizons, Can You Feel My Heart? I absolutely love it. I started to go Shadow Moses here because I absolutely love that song. But this is one of those bands that now is kind of becoming an international headliner. They started out just kind of being an opening and support act for other bands around Europe, and now they're kind of a worldwide headliner. They're a band that's really, really on the cusp of some huge things. But I haven't seen them yet. I want to. It's Bring Me the Horizon. Can You Feel My Heart? If they come to your town, let me know. I may come. We'll go together. Number two, I love this song. I love this album. It was an album that they made their way. I have met the guys in Pop Evil. Lee, the singer, an incredible guy. Incredible guy. Had a chance to sit down and break bread with him. We were in Oklahoma a couple years ago. Thanks, Mark. And just visit with him and his girlfriend. And the thing I love about Lee and Pop Evil is they are not like the old guard that have this wall up between them and their fans. Lee is a very down-to-earth guy that just has a super cool job. I love Pop Evil. I do. And I'm an old-school Pop Evil fan. I've been with them since the beginning, all the way back, I guess, from Lipstick on the Mirror. Onyx is a great album, too. But I tell you, one of my favorite songs in that catalog is a song about addiction. And surprise, surprise, right? But it really talks about the power that it has over you. And it's the great track, Deal with the Devil. And that's really what we're talking about here. When we get involved, there's so many people now that will normalize drug abuse and addiction and that sort of stuff. And it's just okay. It's okay. Whatever makes your life easier. Well, if it's unhealthy, it's not making my life easier. It's not. And I'm a guy that's been through it, man. And that's one of the things, and again, I feel like I'm being preachy today, and that's okay. Maybe I need to say this. I have so many people that I still interact with regularly. A lot of it's online, and it's so easy to interact with people online these days. And there's so many people that are just full of crap. But, and that's the thing I love about social media. It kind of just, it makes it easier to identify the idiots. But nevertheless, these people have these opinions, these relative opinions about recovery and about addiction and things like that. And so, you're so old school and antiquated. Yeah, listen. You're still actively using narcotics. I'm not. We are not the same. We are not the same. And I'm not from this, I did this for a while and my feelings were hurt. And I went through this and they weren't satisfying my needs and my life is terrible. Listen, I was homeless, man. That's the level of addiction that I know. I was homeless. I was unemployed. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a pot to piss in or one to throw it out of. I was broke as the Ten Commandments. I had facing felony charges. I'd lost everything that I had, every relationship that I treasured, everything. All I had left to save was my life. And so when I think about recovery, I don't think about, I just went through a difficult phase where my feelings were hurt. This is a family show, or I would say exactly how I feel about that. We are absolutely not the same. But if you continue down that path, you will experience the same things that I did, if not worse. I'm a suicide attempt survivor, man. I'm a guy that's been to jail. I'm a guy that's been to drug rehab. This isn't some fake thing for me. This isn't about getting my feelings hurt. I had to save my life. And these people I hear nowadays be like, it's okay. It's okay. It's not okay. This is a life and death deal. This is not, I'm going to cut back on the coke a little bit. I'm just going to do, I'm going to switch over and do this. No, it's not. Life doesn't work that way. I'm telling you, it leads one of three places: jails, institution, and death. It's as simple as I can say it. And if anybody out there is telling you something else, they're lying to you. And more times than not, they're lying to you to make themselves feel better. Either you're clean and sober or you're not. And I've got some friends of mine in the recovery community and many people in rock music that I deal with regularly, and we talk about these things when we get together. It's like, if I didn't drink, I'd be back on heroin. That's what you tell yourself to make yourself feel better. You can live life without chemical dependency. You can. You can't just trade one addiction for another and call yourself in recovery. And that is something that's a hill that I will die on every single time, because it does a disservice to the still suffering addict to suggest to them that at some point they can continue to use in a healthy way. It just doesn't work that way. Number one, Before I Get Angry. Great album. Loved it. It was kind of a return to form for these guys. Let's see, Avenged Sevenfold, guys. And it's Hail to the King. Absolutely love this song. I've joked with people before, if I ever have entrance music, this would probably be one of the songs I would consider. Hail to the King. A lot of it's not just because of ego or whatever, but I just think the song is so incredibly good. Sylvester Gates does a tremendous job on this. Of course, Matt from M Shadows, met Matt, and tremendous guy. Had a chance to meet the Reb before he passed away. We met these guys in Tupelo, Mississippi. How about that? But yeah, great band. I love Avenged Sevenfold. I don't like the new album. I'll be honest with you. I just don't get it. I don't. And I think it was a waste of time and material. I think it's a disservice to the fans. I mean, those guys have to be responsible for themselves and their own career. But I think this Avenged Sevenfold, Hell to the King era was probably the peak of this band. Saw them in Tulsa with Bullet for My Valentine a while back. And I've seen them, I guess, 3 times now. I love Avenged Sevenfold, the new album. I don't get it. I know many of you will say, but Steve, I don't. And I've tried to. And I'm a fan of this band all the way back from, I guess, City of Evil was kind of my introduction with Back Country. I know some of you were with them a little bit earlier, but A Little Piece of Heaven or whatever. But I wasn't. And but Hell to the King, to me, is one of these songs where I think about Avenged Sevenfold. And I think about, if I wanted to sell you on this band, it would be Hell to the King. That's your top 10 list for today. If you have ideas for a top 10 list, reach out, let us know. You can hit us up. Best way to do it is on social media. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout, Steve R, and of course Roy at Dogmatic67. All right, next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Bookmart. If you're looking for your MSU interlocking merch, look no further than Campus Bookmart. You can go by and peruse their fine selections in person and see their smiling faces, right? If you can't make it to town and perhaps game day is not a good shopping day for you, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays, and that is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. And as we mentioned, game day will be here very soon. So maybe you're holding out to shop in person, but maybe you're thinking, you know what? I really want to outfit the family in new gear. I want to rep this new vintage vault logo. Then what you do is you visit them online. Cool, right? Campusbookmart.net, promo code BSR. You may have noticed Mississippi State made some updates on their social media platforms, changed the profile picture on most stuff to the state script. We did that on our website a week or so ago. It wasn't just fortuitous, right? There is, or let's say there appears to be a shift in our branding. And I know that's a lot of people are excited about that. I am too. And I'll share with you again my thoughts on the logo. A lot of people say, Steve, it's just a logo. But it's not. It's not just a logo. Not in my opinion. You know, I want what's best for Mississippi State. And I think you do too. We're not always going to agree what's best, right? And we disagree about coaching decisions all the time. We disagree with recruiting priorities. Why aren't we taking this kid? Why are we prioritizing that kid, right? There's so much out there that's left up for debate, and it's matters of opinion. This is one of them. I submit to you that the M-State banner logo is a great logo for the university. I think it works well for the university. I think it looks good on a tie tack. It looks good, as a lapel pin. It looks good on letterhead. It looks good on a diploma. I don't know that it looks good on a helmet. And I know many of you say, but yeah, I don't really care as long as we win. And that's true too. I don't care what we do as long as we win either. But when I think about shifting our thinking, because we have a tendency to get kind of antiquated in our thinking, it's like, well, this is what we've always done. Well, that doesn't mean that's what we should continue to do it. And so I'm happy to see this, and I will credit Zach Selman and the administration for making this move, because I think it's important. And I also think it's important to be receptive to the fans. And I don't know we've always done that at Mississippi State. Well, we always said, well, this is what we're going to do, And if you love us, then you'll agree with it. And there's a large segment of our fan base that's kind of how they feel. It's like, hey, whatever the university decides, I'm going to support. And that's a good way of thinking too. It is, right? It's a relationship. But I think it's important to modernize things. I think it's important to say, you know what? If we do what we've always done, we're going to get what we've always gotten, right? And you can say, well, does the logo really make us that much difference? I think it does. I think it shows that, in many respects, that we're willing to embrace change, which is difficult at times. So we're still going to keep the M-State banner logo. We are, and we should. But I think it's what we're seeing now is maybe the fact that we're emphasizing the secondary marks. My honest opinion is I would be perfectly okay if we had a baseball-only logo, we had a football-only logo, we had a basketball-only logo. I'm fine with that. There are other people that say, you know what, we have to have consistency in branding. I don't think there's anybody out there that's looking for a Mississippi State piece of merchandise or a game or anything like that that is confused. We talk about the baseball-specific logos. Most of what we consider the best baseball programs in the country have a baseball-specific logo. They do. You look at LSU football. I mean, their football logo is timeless in many respects, but it's very different from their baseball logo. You know, that their interlocking LSU is for baseball. It's not for football. You know, when you look at Florida State or Miami or Ole Miss, Arkansas, everybody has a baseball-specific logo. And so would we be totally out of the box if we thought, hey, let's put the interlocking MSU as our primary football logo? We haven't taken that step yet, but I think there is maybe an undercurrent within the fan base that says, hey, let's do that. Let's do that. And it's not just feelings of nostalgia. I think there's a reason that people look at that logo and say, yeah, that's really who we are. Now, I'm a guy, too, that understands MSU is not our branding. Like when we look at these SEO guides that people share, the team that's referred to as MSU nationally is Michigan State. In many respects, especially in the Southeast, we are state. Nobody calls LSU State. They don't call Florida State State. They're LSU and FSU. But we're state. You talk to any SEC fan in the country and say, hey, you guys are playing state this weekend. You don't need an explanation. We're state. Now, people in California may not know us as state. But are we really that concerned about what the rest of the country thinks about us? Honestly, let's do what's best for the people that matter most. That's what I think we should emphasize. What do the fans want? Well, the fans have wanted the interlocking MSU back on the helmet for a long time, and we're going to wear it in the Kentucky game. I don't know that maybe next year we don't decide, you know what, this is it. I do like the fact that we're going to have the state script this year on the helmets. I think it looks cool. I think it's important for us. And like right in the middle of all of this, you start thinking, okay, for so long, many of us have wanted, hey, let's begin to emphasize the fact that we're state. But now we're going to be MSU too. I understand the confusion in that conversation. I just think it's, rather than just having some comprehensive marketing plan where we just say, okay, this is who we're going to be in every aspect, I think it's okay to say, you know what, let's do this. Let's do M over S over baseball. Let's do the interlocking MSU for football. And we'll use the state script for everything else. And he said, but Steve, that's just so, disjointed. Maybe it is. But it's not like we're in a competition. Winning marketing competitions is very esteeming for the people that are involved in that process. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what's best for our branding. There are a lot of people that do a great job marketing for Mississippi State. Tremendous job. We've won several awards, and it's great. Our social media engagement is great, and there's a lot of people that kind of look at that and they assign a value to every bit of that, and there is some value to it. But I think the underlying value is what do recruits want? What do players want? What do the fans want? This is all a relationship in many respects, and we talked about relationships earlier in the show. There is some give and take. And so I think you can't get by just force-feeding this to Mississippi State fans. Say, hey, we're going to do this, and you either like it or don't. And I'm not saying that anybody has that attitude, but there have been times in the past that's how it's felt. And so I'm on board with it. I am. And at the end of the day, the best branding is winning. But we have done some things from a marketing standpoint, branding standpoint, I think that have kind of held us back in some respects, because I think about, at the end of the day, it's about the health of the university and our athletic programs. But what do you think that the retail sales were at Mississippi State specific vendors last week. What do you think? Right, you would already expect an uptick in sales because school's back in session. Right, we're getting back to to football. A lot of people are in town moving their kids in, and you go by go by and shop, and you go buy them a few things here and there. But talking to retailers around town, there's a bunch of that. There's a bunch, an absolute bunch of merchandising sales that maybe weren't as anticipated as you'd expect. And I think a lot of it just goes to show you how great the fans have responded to this interlocking MSU. So do we make it permanent? I think we should. I'm going to be okay either way, but I would be happier to see that late 90s logo on the helmets. And again, I detailed out last week. It's so interesting to me, and I got a lot of people that say, Steve, you need to get to the bottom of this. At the end of the day, I don't want to assign blame to anybody. I just want to fix it. It doesn't matter who was at fault. There's no point in politically scourging people publicly because of the decisions that they made when perhaps they were in charge. But the reality of it is let's just fix the problem rather than figure out who to point a finger at. That's my take. You may disagree. All right, let's take a look at Arizona this week on our shows. We're going to do, we're going to preview 3 of our 4. We're done with the SEC, so we're going to do Arizona, Western Michigan, and Southern Miss this week. And then next week, we'll begin previewing Southeastern Lions. I wrote a piece yesterday for those of you that were looking for some Mississippi State material yesterday about State's history against the Louisiana directional schools. And thought it was rather interesting. You can find that article for free over at genespage.com. Of course, it's on all social media platforms as well. It's a free article. You should be a subscriber. If you're not, come visit us over at genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports. But yeah, let's talk Arizona. I know when we signed this deal, people were like, man, Arizona, Arizona State. Guys, I had a great time out there last year. Of course, Dana was working in New Mexico, so I got to go spend a couple days with her. Probably should have stayed the week with her. But all that said, I had a great time out there. People were a little bit worried about the ball game. I wasn't. But this is a team last year that I remember before we played them, people were like, they went to San Diego State and they beat the Aztecs up in their debut in that brand new stadium in the heat. It was unseasonably warm in San Diego when they played that game. But Arizona wins it 38-20. And, of course, they had Jacob DeLara, and people were like, I don't know. Well, we went up there and beat them 39-17, and the game was really never in doubt, especially after that first quarter. We kind of did what we wanted to do. We out-athleted them and won the game going away. And I remember walking out of that stadium, I remember thinking, there's no way this team makes a bowl game. Not us, but Arizona. I thought, this is not a bowl team. It's great to get a Power 5 win, and it's important for us to get the W, but this is not a great Arizona team. Now, the next week, they bounced back and beat North Dakota State 31-28. Not an impressive win, but a win nonetheless. Then they go to Cal. They get beat 49-31. They beat Colorado 43-20, but everybody did. They lost to Oregon 49-22 in Tucson. They lost at Washington 49-39. They lose to USC 45-37. Competitive game there, but not great. And then Utah gets them 45-20. So you have a 4-game losing streak there pretty much throughout the month of October and the beginning of November. They pull off the big upset of UCLA in the Rose Bowl, Pasadena 34-28, then lose to Washington State, and then win the rivalry game 38-35. And so they end the year 5-7 and 3-6 in the league. And it's like, again, they didn't make the bowl game. Not to sit here to praise myself, but I just didn't see it, didn't feel it. I just thought there were so many moving pieces to that didn't look like Power 5. But it was a much better year because in 21, those guys were 1-11. So they got better. A lot of people are anticipating them being a bowl team this year. So we should see a better Arizona team this year in Starkville than we saw last year in Tucson. Enjoyed my time in Arizona. I did, for sure. But defensively, they were so bad last year. And that's the thing you look at now. The fact that we get them early is probably a really good thing. But they're going to be able to whip it around and throw it around a little bit, and I'm eager to see how much DeLaura has improved over last year. There were some times Jaden DeLaura, excuse me. There were some times last year when he had the ability to run and he didn't. It's like he tried to force the pass rather than just kind of take what the defense gave him. But really big year for him last year, nearly 3,700 yards passing, one of the biggest years in school history. I don't know that he's the plus runner that some people build him to be. And the fact that he's added some more weight this year. I think he is maybe a suitable runner, a guy that can get out and when the defense breaks down a little bit, he can scramble, kind of extend some plays. I don't think that he is going to be a big component. The big guy last year for them was Dorian Singer. Of course, he transferred out and went to USC. But there are still some guys out there. Jacob Cowing, of course, big-time player for them. We were aware last year of him and did a good job against him. But they want to be able to run the football, obviously. They got some dudes, and they're a Power 5 program, right? But probably the biggest name on their offense is Jordan Morgan, the left tackle for them. They're going to want to run off left side with him, and we're going to have to kind of get out there and flank the edge a little bit and not let that guy take over a ball game. And with our scheme, it's a little different for them, for sure. Defensively, again, they were absolutely abysmal last year. We'll see. They hit the transfer portal hard, and that's the thing, too. What we've noticed with these teams, even though you improve your talent level, you may not be better at a team in the early as a team in the early going because of the fact that you have to spend some time developing some cohesion. We deal with that too. Everybody does. So we'll see. Johnny Nainson is defensive coordinator there. They believe they've got some dudes, obviously, that are good players, but I think we'll get them early enough in the year, before they kind of figure some things out defensively. And we need to win this game. A lot of people are just kind of assuming a win here. Again, it's going to be a better team than last year, for sure. I just don't know if they've got the athletes, to come in here and win a game in an SEC environment. We'll see. But, again, it will be a better team. Let's look at their schedule this year. Much like us, they shouldn't be tested in week one. They're going to get Northern Arizona. That's Saturday before us. And then, of course, they'll make the trip to Starkville. The next week, they go to UTEP. That could be, they host UTEP. That could be an interesting deal. Then they open a Pac-12 or 2 play at Stanford. They host Washington. They're at USC. They're at Washington State. They host Oregon State. They host UCLA. They're at Colorado. Military and Veteran Appreciation Day with Utah rolling into Tucson. Then they're at Arizona State. And so you start looking through this and you just kind of wonder, how good's the Pac-12 going to be this year? I don't think we know at this point. I think that the Pac-12's got some teams that are certainly capable of beating Arizona. I think this team is going to – I think they're going to probably find a way to get bowl eligible, but it's going to require likely an upset or two. They should beat Northern Arizona. I don't expect them to beat us. That makes them 1-1. They should be able to get UTEP at home, which will make them 2-1. They're at Stanford. It's tough to win on the road anywhere, but let's call that a loss. That's 2-2. Washington, what do they have at Washington this year? We'll see. They have that game at home. We'll call it a toss-up, but I'm just not prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's call it 2-3. They got to go to USC and play in the Coliseum and make them 2-4. You got to win at Washington State. The Washington State situation is interesting. I think Arizona can go in there and get it done. You're playing in October, so the weather should be good, where in November it could be terrible. We'll give them the dub there. You get Oregon State coming in. Oregon State obviously was a really good team last year that smashed Florida in the Vegas Bowl. UCLA, it's difficult to say there, but we'll give them a win against Colorado. I think this team is going to struggle to get to 6, but I think they've got to find a way to win 3 of those 4 non-conference games and then probably pull an upset or 2. What's Arizona State going to have this year? I don't know. I really don't know. I guess it's just 3 conference games. So you got to win 2 in the non-conference and then find a way to get 4 more in the conference play. And again, going to Colorado, we'll see what happens. But I think that could be a dub for them. But this Arizona team is just kind of middle of the pack in a league that's got some elite teams, and the bottom of this league is maybe better than it has been in recent years. It may boil down to that game at Arizona State. But again, this is a team that we ought to be able to handle. We ought to be able to get these guys in our part of the yard and beat them and make them play our game. I just think with all the misdirection we're going to have on offense and the way that we blitz, we're going to be difficult to prepare for, and nothing against Northern Arizona is going to prepare them for us. Now, you could say, well, Steve, we're kind of in the same situation. We're not having as many guys that we're having to kind of fit in, defensively. Yeah, we've got some moving parts in the secondary, but by and large, everybody that's expected to be in the starting lineup for Mississippi State on defense has been in the program for at least a year, with the exception of Jacoby Albert. So everybody else that you're expecting to be on the field this year, and they're playing in a defensive scheme that they've been a part of throughout their time here. So we don't have as many moving pieces on defense that they do, and I think it's going to be too much too soon for them to be able to kind of figure that thing out. So again, they're 5-7 last year. Maybe they get to 6, but it's one of those deals you look at and say there's so many toss-up games here. I mean, listen, let's be honest too. The fact that they won at UCLA last year was a big surprise. So I think by the expectations, you look at it and say probably a 4-8 team. And then you go out and think, okay, San Diego State was a bit of an upset too. And so yes, they managed 5-7. Your record is what you say it is. But there were a couple of those games there you look at and say, you know what, this really didn't compute. But that's what we love college football. There's always games that pop up that don't make any sense. I mean, the fact that Appalachian State beat Michigan and Lloyd Carr, that didn't make any sense, but they did it. But I think this is a team, obviously, that just has a lot of question marks. I mean, it really has a lot of question marks. And I just don't think they're going to be able to answer them by week 2. And again, looking at the Pac-12 schedule, I mean, so Arizona's picked 8th by the media. And that, in 50 cents, can get you a cup of coffee at the D-Lo truck stop. But, but beneath them is Cal, Arizona State, Colorado, and Stanford. So, you can find a way to win some games against the bottom half of this league. You got a chance to get bowl eligible. But when you begin to factor in USC, Washington, and Utah, it's going to be tough. Oregon State's kind of a contemporary in many respects. UCLA, they are too, Washington State. But, so Arizona, picked in the bottom half of the league. But there are some people around them, obviously, that they're going to play on the schedule. And we'll see how things kind of roll out for them. But, looking at the Pac-12 preseason all-conference team, and again, you take a lot of this with a grain of salt, running through the first-team offense, not a single Arizona player on it. Running through the second-team offense, there too. Jacob Cowing, a wide receiver, and then Jordan Morgan. Both those guys we kind of highlighted in our preview there. So just 2 players on either of the first 2 teams' preseason Pac-12. Looking at first-team defense, no Arizona players. Looking at second-team defense, no Arizona players. And it stands to reason because they were so abysmal and have so many new faces this year. So this is a defense not expected to rebound. Of course, they could surprise some people, but the all-purpose player on the second team is Jacob Cowing. So got to deal with him again. Did a good job against him last year. But a handful of guys got some honorable mention type stuff there. But again, a team that's not expected to do a whole lot, but with a couple of breaks here and there, they could be a bowl team. And we need them to be, right? I mean, we'd like for those guys to win 6, 7, as long as it's not one against us. That's the thing that I've always learned about this is after we beat a team, I want them to set the woods on fire in a non-conference. Same thing in baseball, right? And in basketball, right? I mean, there's especially with the way the rankings are set up now, you want people to add value to your strength of schedule. We don't want to just beat bad teams. We'd love to be able to beat Arizona, then all of a sudden, they find a way to elevate and make a nice bowl game somewhere else. That would be good for us. And not just from a perception standpoint, but, we're going to be having playoffs, expanded playoffs in the years to come. And you need people out there that help the metrics of your team as they're evaluated by the playoff committee. We're not a playoff team this year. But that's not to say in the foreseeable future we couldn't be. And so it's important that we beat teams and then we don't see them fall apart. We want them to continue to do well, not because we like them, but because our motives are self-serving in many respects. All right, let's kind of move forward here as we get ready to wrap up in the final few minutes of the show. I'll tell you, When the Bottom Falls is the new book that's going to come out next month. It's already being laid out. I had to go through some pictures last night and pick those out, send them to the publisher. It's all being typeset, and then next thing you know, it'll get in line. They'll print it, they'll bind it, they'll put the book jackets on it, they'll send it to us. And so we're about a month out, and once we get an official release date, I'll let you know. But typically it runs about 5 weeks. So late September is what we're expecting, and I will update you as we get closer to that. But went through some pictures last night. It's one of those things that, my wife says I'm a bit of a pack rat, but I'm quick to say she is too. There's I noticed she kept a bunch of birthday cards and things like that, and things from. She's even kept, I sent some flowers to her from Billy Harriman's florist. That was kind of my florist of choice in Baton Rouge, and she kept a lot of those things, those cards. It means a lot to me. My wife's not the emotional one in the relationship, right? I mean, she loves me, obviously, but the fact that she kept those things means something to me. But I tell you, navigating through all that stuff, it kind of gives you a measure of your life. It's like you start working through all this, and it's like, oh, I remember this. What year was this? And we did this, and we did that. You start kind of dating your life by when your kids were born and when they accomplished certain things. And I look back at some of those old pictures, and I think I'll never be that person again. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, it's about evolution. And I share that. I think it's important that we all take an inventory of kind of where we are and where we want to go. I mean, I didn't turn 50 and just decide, okay, I'm just kind of waiting around to die. I still got some dreams and some aspiration things that I want to take care of. But one of the things that's important to me is that we provide the best coverage of Mississippi State sports that's available. That's not to say that somebody's not going to write a great story one day that's not within our umbrella. That happens. Some very talented people on the Mississippi State beat. And we're about to make a pretty big announcement, too, about we're hiring another writer. And matter of fact, when I wrap this show up, I'm going to go have lunch with him. And we've already got through it. It's not public yet, but we're going to be announcing another team member on our staff. And so that's the thing about life is you can never just get satisfied with where you are. And it's one of the things that I think about. I'm not going to name people by names, but there are some people that get to a standard, comfort level of living. It's like they reach a certain level and they stop pushing. And I'm not that kind of person. And I hope that you aren't either, because there are so many wonderful things in life that are still available to you. And when I think about, what's next for us as a business and what's next for us as Mississippi State, I think we're about to undergo some really strong years in Mississippi State athletics. I mean, if I went out there right now and I polled the fan base and said, hey, how do you feel about the direction of Mississippi State men's basketball? You'd get an enthusiastic, oh, it's great. I love Chris Jans, right? Do you realize the roster that we had last year may and should prove to be the least talented one he ever has here in Starkville? I mean, honestly, think about that. I mean, he took kind of a hodgepodge of players and took us to the tournament in a year that a lot of people expected us to be one of the worst 4 teams in the league. It says a tremendous amount about his coaching ability and his ability to manage a roster and to kind of tailor his system around the players. Yes, there is an expectation you have to live up to, but there's some give and take with coaches. Like, hey, this kid's not capable of doing this. Let's put him in position to be successful. I think you'd say, you know what, Steve? Yeah, I feel really good about men's basketball. Probably the best I've felt about men's basketball since that fateful day in Hawaii, right? And you know what I'm talking about. It's been a long time since we've had this kind of feeling about Mississippi State men's basketball. And rightfully so. If I asked you what you expect on the women's side, you're like, Steve, hey, look at the way Sam is recruiting. Look at what we did last year. And again, I say this, probably the least talented roster that he'll have here at Mississippi State. And that's not a slight at those ladies. He didn't recruit them. And not to mention, we had some difficulties, for a couple of years, transitioning away from the Vic Schaefer years, as you guys are well aware. But you start thinking about that. Hey, the women's basketball piece, hey, we didn't even realize we love women's basketball, right? Until Vic Schaefer said, hey, you guys follow me. When you begin to think about, softball, we've done some pretty cool things the last couple of years. Last year, obviously, we didn't end the way we wanted to. But we hosted a Super Regional 2 years ago. Something that's never been done in the history of Mississippi State softball. And so, I think we have the right coach, right? Eager to see what they do this year. You think about baseball. Listen, their opinions vary on this thing, for sure. But I know that we're Mississippi State baseball. And another Chris Simonis won an AFL championship. And the very first thing people say is, well, Stevie won it with somebody else's players. Well, no, not necessarily. I go back and I think about, Houston Harding and Scotty DeBrule and Will Bednar. And then, there's a lot to that. And so, every coach builds upon the foundation that was laid before them. Every coach. You think Larry Coker won, at Miami just because of the fact that Larry was a great coach? There's always stuff to this, Am I hopeful about the season? Yes. Am I optimistic? Yeah. Am I confident? No. I'm not confident. I'm eager to see him in the fall. I do know that the league is not what it has been. I know that Arkansas is going to be really, really good. I know LSU is going to be good too. The rest of the league, I don't know. We'll see. I'm eager to see what the schedules look like too, right? But I know this. I know that we have a mission in life, and that is to cover Mississippi State sports extensively. And I submit to you, I believe that we've done a better job of that than anybody in the history of the university. But we're not satisfied with that. And, we're going to be pushing forward. And we're going to push the envelope. And we're going to do some things that we've never done before to try to give you better coverage that we've ever done. And we're the industry leader when it comes to Mississippi State sports. Every time I go somewhere to these national events and things like that, people say, hey, you guys are doing a better job than anybody. And there's a reason for that. And we still have a vision, though. It's important to understand. We have a vision for the future for what's best for our business and what's best for the coverage of Mississippi State sports. And the reality of it is that we're really just getting started. And I've got some very talented individuals that we have brought on board since I took over, and very excited about their futures and really the direction of everything. And there's some things, obviously, that I can't talk about yet, but we will. And the reality of it is, though, is I'm very grateful for each and every one of you and for all of you listening to our show. And if you hadn't considered subscribing to Gene's Page, I encourage you to do so. And I can't sit here and promise you we're going to call it Gene's Page forever. There's no Gene anymore, so it's kind of, it's one of those things I think about. And so I'm open to those possibilities. I'm going to do what's best for the business. And we talked about Mississippi State branding. We're going to do what's best for our business. And there are going to be times I'm going to make some decisions and maybe don't agree with them. And that's okay too. But I can assure you that they're always made with the best interest of the business in mind, and also what I think is best for Mississippi State coverage. And so if you hadn't done so, I'm encouraging you to come over and be a subscriber of ours. In addition to that, if you hadn't bought a book yet, go to whenthebottomfalls.com. You can pre-order the book, and all of my sports books are there. And you can find Stark Villains gear at starkvillains.com. We sold a lot of shirts over the years. I like that Stark Villain thing. Matter of fact, I went and got a trademark on it. But the reality of it is I think it's super cool. A lot of people I'll meet and say, Steve, how can we support you? Well, you can subscribe to the website, you can buy the books, you can buy the shirts, and you can continue to listen to the show and share it whenever you can. If there's something good, be sure and share the show. I'm not out here chasing rankings or anything like that. I'm just trying to make sure we do a good job conveying the Mississippi State message in many respects to you as I see it. And I've talked myself into some trouble in this show a couple times before and gotten phone calls. Hey, why would you say that? Because that's what I believe. That's what I know to be true. And so sometimes that makes people uncomfortable, and I'm going to continue to do that. And they're often fans from other universities that listen to this show as they get ready for their team to play us in football or baseball. And so I appreciate them, and I appreciate you listening and being a part of this wild circus that I call life. But again, I'm so incredibly appreciative of each of you, whether you be a subscriber to the website or not, or maybe you're not a reader, you don't buy books, and I get it. I don't like it, but I get it. But I appreciate you being a part of this thing, more so than I can ever say. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.